If you want success during the rut, forget about the food. Think travel corridors.
I don't think there is a common thread to it. They are so focused on procreating that circle of life that they don't eat. Many of them just run for days. They do need moisture, so they will drink and stuff, but a lot of those bucks are just putting on miles, looking for does, sleeping when they can with one eye open.
It's the rut. We're hunting the sand hills in Nebraska. There's mule deer, there's whitetails, there's turkeys, there's sharptail. This place has got it all.
You're watching Deer and Deer Hunting TV.
This is where it all begins.
My best hunting day ever. This is Deer and Deer Hunting TV.
You know, it's always interesting to pay attention to what the deer are eating. I live in Alberta. The deer are fairly unpressured by US standards for sure. You know, we don't have nearly the hunting pressure, but it's interesting to watch the deer. The ones that are in the agricultural areas really key into certain foods, but we have lots of deer that live in the bush country. The bottom line is they always look for the best protein available, and I'm not sure how they do it, whether it's by taste or smell, but they get into the field peas and the alfalfa and barley and the crops when they're prime for eating, and those bush bucks are very selective in terms of the grasses and some of the browsing they do as well. But I'll tell you what, when you harvest one and you see 3 to 4 inches of fat on their back, you know that they're in the best groceries possible.
What about the rut? During the rut, the travel patterns of a whitetail buck change dramatically, and a lot of the things that we think about are turned on their head. What I mean by this is that we're often focused on the buck's home range, and how does he use his home range, and where is he bedding, and what's his preferred bedding area. During the rut, flip that. We want to know where's the doe's preferred bedding area, where's the doe's home range, because guess what? He's coming to her. That's why during the rut, a buck's average distance, you know, his home range is about 640 acres, square mile. It's going to expand 2 miles, plural. And he's going to be putting on a lot of ground in search of those estrus does.
I don't think there is a common thread to it. They are so focused on procreating that circle of life that they don't eat. Many of them just run for days. They do need moisture, so they will drink and stuff, but a lot of those bucks are just putting on miles, looking for does, sleeping when they can with one eye open. And you know, a buck that comes out of the summers in prime shape, got lots of fat, it isn't uncommon to shoot one late in the rut or post-rut that hardly has any fat left on it at all. And that just goes to tell you that those bucks aren't spending a lot of time worrying about their digestive tract. Everything is upstairs in terms of wanting to find the next girl and finishing that circle of life to make sure there's always whitetails in the future.
Coming up, Dan Schmidt returns to western Nebraska. This time he has with him the new Remington Model 7 and 6.5 Creedmoor, which he plans on testing out on a sandhill whitetail. And later, Brad Fenson takes a confident shot at a buck on the run and explains just how you can do the same. You're watching Deer and Deer Hunting TV. Deer and Deer Hunting is brought to you by Scent Killer Gold with Hunt Dry Technology Plus. Apply it, try it, and go hunt. Remington, America's oldest gunmaker. Get armed and deadly with Easton FNJ arrows. And by 10-Point Crossbow Technologies. There is no substitute. This segment of Deer and Deer Hunting is brought to you by Redneck Blinds. Whitetail, antelope, prairie chickens, and ducks are just a few of the wild game options to hunt for at Goose Creek Outfitters. And Dan simply couldn't resist.
That's a Remington moment right there. That's a beautiful duck. That's a lot of fun.
Deer movement patterns change throughout the season. Early season, early rut, full rut, late season. Deer are always changing. They're always changing up, doing different things. And you need to change with them. If you sit on those same places that you used during the early season, during the rut, you're going to be very disappointed in the number of deer you see because the deer are changing it up. Now there's 3 different ways to approach hunting the rut. There's going to be morning sits, there's going to be afternoon sits, there's going to be all day sits. Now that doesn't mean that you can't sit at one place in the morning and then move to another place midday and another place late day. Now the morning sits, obviously the deer are coming off of the food sources. And once again, it's the does. You need to target the does because that's exactly what the bucks are doing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to position myself quite a ways off of the food sources. I want to catch those deer meandering back to their bedding areas, back to those areas where bucks are chasing does, especially early in the morning.
So we're in Nebraska hunting with our good friends Scott and LaKayla Fink, Goose Creek Outfitters, a great place. It's in the middle of the Sandhills. And if you get out here, it is just so vast and it's almost nondescript because there's so much land, it's rolling, there's not a lot to it. And what's really neat about this, they have whitetails and mule deer. These deer species share the same range and don't share the same range, if that makes sense. The whitetails tend to stick to the whitetail areas and the mule deers tend to stick to the more wide open areas, but they will mix together. The whitetail areas, some prime corridors here. But like I said, unless you're used to looking at it, it doesn't look like much. Might be a small woodlot here, a really kind of faint little dry creek, and a small woodlot here surrounded by some ag. That's how we wanted to hunt this during the rut because it was coming into prime breeding season. So this is the part that gets me geeked out. Whether I'm hunting here at home in Wisconsin or whether I'm in Nebraska or whether I'm in Texas, no matter what. When that rut starts and those bucks really start seeking hard, you're gonna see this type of activity in the middle of the day. Now this buck comes out, really nice representative buck, beautiful 8-point. He comes out and he is just basically, he's kind of meandering through this field, but he is in between seeking and feeding and his normal activities. But he's zigzagging through this field. There's a few does on the outskirts. He's not super interested yet, but you can tell he's ramping up. Maybe 20 minutes into watching this buck, I said, hey, that's a decent buck. I will gladly tag that buck. And sure enough, he put on a show right in front of us, came right in front of me, maybe 200 yards. I was not worried with that Model 7 at my shoulder.
Here it comes, here it comes. You want him? We got him. Stay on. He's a big Nebraska buck, man. Yes. You can't script any of this. What an awesome buck, man. He's pretty. Just a pretty nice 8-point buck. Beautiful brows. Awesome deer.
Almost anticlimactic. I know I've said this probably a million times, if not 10, here on Deer and Deer Hunting TV, that I will not pass up a buck the first day, that I will gladly shoot the last day, and I will gladly shoot this buck any day of the week.
Okay, when you're gutting a deer, a lot of times you can give yourself your own biology lesson. What are you gonna learn from this? Okay, we got the heart out. Kind of gross? Well, let's learn from it. That blood inside the heart is often dark. Now, this isn't perfect, but we're gonna squeeze some of that blood and look at the snow. This can make you a better blood tracker. If you think you hit the heart and you got really dark blood, chances are you hit the heart, but it's gonna give you another indicator as to what that blood might look like once it hits the ground.
You know, if I had to choose one period to hunt deer, it would always be first thing in the morning. I don't care what the moon phase is, what the weather's like. It seems like if I had to pick one time when there was the most deer movement in the day, personally, I'd pick mornings. Evenings are a close second. During the rut, I watch the moon very carefully. If there's a full moon, those critters can run all night long, making it very hard to find them during the day. But if you have a sliver of a moon or even a half moon, I spend a lot of time out midday. 10 to 2 can be dynamite. Those bucks are running hard, they're refueling, and they're on a tighter time schedule, I think, in terms of looking for does, feeding when they can, refueling. So midday can really be a prime time when everyone else has gone back to camp to have a snooze or a bite to eat. Sit still, pay attention, watch your favorite deer areas. It isn't uncommon to find them that midday stretch. Oh, big sandhill buck down. You know, the ethics about shooting at running deer are going to be debated. Lots of people think it's unethical, although you go back 40, 50 years and Jack O'Connor, who was one of the original gun writers in North America, wrote many columns and books about his favorite activity, walking through the hills, getting a deer out of his bed and shooting it as it ran away. Today, a lot of people think if it's not standing broadside, that you shouldn't shoot at it. I happen to disagree. I don't think shooting running deer is for everyone. If you've got lots of experience, you know your firearm properly, you know how to lead a target and sustain that lead and maintain it on the animal, be able to hold those crosshairs steady, you can make the shot every time. If in question, you just don't pull the trigger. It's that simple. So ethics, everyone has personal ethics. You know, our regulations are often made to try to create ethics for sportsmen, but ultimately it comes down to personal decisions. And if you know your firearm properly, you can shoot it well, you know how to sustain a lead. Shooting deer on the run is very ethical, and you can get a clean kill by doing it as well.
I don't know if you would have had another shot.
I don't think I would have.
He's
He's a whitetail.
yeah, he wouldn't.
Wow, Brad really made a great shot in that running buck. And my feeling is that if you feel you've got the experience, you've got the knowledge, you're comfortable with your gun, and the deer is presenting a shot that's makeable, I say yes. I grew up shooting at running deer. My family, we did deer drives, and yes, you're going to be shooting at running deer. And you learn how to lead deer, you learn how to follow through. It's not a lot different than shooting, wing shooting at waterfowl or pheasants.
If you have a scope that has parallax, I try to judge the distance. You know, you can say, okay, I'm going to have a 100 to 150 yard shot, adjust the parallax so that your bullet path will be straight and so is the focus within your scope. This morning when I shot a deer, I actually came around the corner and we saw it running. Immediately I got on my shooting sticks. I always try to put them forward so that you can adjust it. Got on it. I tucked my arms in because it was extremely windy. Acquire the target in my scope and follow it. And as that crosshair stays on the deer, as it continues to move, I squeeze the trigger and bang. It's not a snapshot, it's not a quick shot, it's not when the crosshair crosses the animal, it's when I have it locked on and I can follow it and continue to keep that crosshair on target and bang. It's very effective and it's very consistent. And if you follow some basic rules of shooting, anybody can do it.
Deer and Deer Hunting is brought to you by Thompson Center, America's master gunmakers. Sever broadheads, straight through it. Hunter Safety System, stay connected. And by Cuddyback, CuddyLink, 16 cameras, 1 cell plan, $10 per month.
You got him? We got him. Hey, if you want to become a better gun hunter, especially a rifle hunter, it's all about this. Trigger control. And the best way that I can explain that is with something that simple, just a regular pen. On a centerfire rifle, it's all about how you handle that trigger. It's not like slapping a trigger of a shotgun, which is completely different than a rifle. A rifle, you want everything to be the same, and the trigger, you want to be very controlled when you squeeze the trigger. We always say squeeze the trigger, right? That's what you want to do with that rifle. And how do you practice that? Just get yourself one of these, a handy ink pen. This was a trick a guy taught me a few years ago, and when you push a pen, it goes in and out. But like if you want to practice on a trigger, the tip of your finger on top of that button for the pen, squeeze, 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 so that goes off till you hear it click. You want the pressure from your trigger finger to be perfectly centered. This is what you don't want to do on your trigger. When you get your whole finger in there, that's what you're pulling the shot. Now I'm going to take a shot like that purposefully to show you where that shows up on the target. Okay, first shot I'm going to do the right way. I'm going to practice proper breathing control, and I'm going to put that pressure of that trigger right on the tip of my finger, even pressure. So this was the first shot, doing it the way, squeezing the trigger like I mean, boy, you can't get any better than that. Model 7 sure helps. But that is about trigger control. That's about really being cognizant
of squeezing that trigger, even pressure. Okay, now let's go take a second shot, trying to do it the wrong way by sticking my whole finger in there and shooting it almost like a shotgun. Yeah, that makes the world of difference. That shot, up and down isn't bad, but left and right, it is off by at least 1.5 inches. That's the difference in your trigger finger. You know, if you have that whole trigger in there and it happens, we get excited, you squeeze that trigger, you're going to pull that shot right or left almost every time. Hi, I'm Dan Schmidt. For more tips, strategies, and hunting action, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks for watching Deer and Deer Hunting TV.